President Trump now moving forward on a reported plan to get a giant gift for his administration, I guess personally, politically, but then ultimately for himself through his library. This is a plan to take not $1 million gift.
President Trump is now facing bipartisan backlash for his plans to accept that luxury jet as a gift from the Qatari royal family. In a rare public break from the Trump administration, some of Trump's most vocal and
They're a $10 million thing, but actually $400 million of value from a foreign government through the value of a jet.
loyal supporters in right-wing media are also now criticizing him, calling this move a stain on his administration even. CNN's Brian Stelter is tracking.
Imagine getting a $400 million plane as a surprise gift. Now imagine your neighbors are the U.S. government giving you side-eye for it. Welcome to Trump's latest headline. Consider being handed the keys to a Boeing 747-8 valued at $400 million. Sounds like the upgrading of a dream vacation, not that different. But if you are Donald Trump, that dream can bring you into hot water instead of the heavens. This supposed gift from Qatar is not your usual keepsake. It has spurred serious ethical, legal, and, let's be honest, common sense debate. This kind of private jet is more than just a spectacular object. It's a missile aimed directly at some quite blurry moral boundaries. The deal is that amid a larger diplomatic ceremony spanning hundreds of billions of trade deals, Qatar apparently presented Trump with this shockingly costly jet. One item contained in that package, the $96 billion Boeing Qatar Airways agreement.
It is egregious. It is possibly illegal if Congress doesn't approve it. You might remember all that talk about the Constitution and the Emoluments Clause, but bottom line, there are also figures on the right who are concerned because, separate from the ethics and the obvious security implications.
This is even coming from figures like Laura Loomer, the far-right provocateur, who has a direct line to Trump. I mean, these are people who are usually steadfast supporters of the president, but in this case,
Which we'll get to, this just looks really bad, greedy, thirsty even. So here's the plane.
speaking out against the deal. Let me show you two examples. One is from Ben Shapiro, who co-founded the Daily Wire. He's a prominent podcaster. The other is Eric Erickson, the radio talk show host.
Comprises 160 ordered jets and 50 additional options. Trump's foreign policy dance centered on trade agreements and his own style of international schmoozing colliding. It was more than mere business. Besides, the timing is questionable. It almost yells, "Look at me." Critics contend that this plane more resembles a gold-plated thank you card stapled to a business agreement than a sincere thanks you note. Let us then go over Trump's legal situation. Know what the emoluments clause is? One troubling little rule in the US Constitution basically says you cannot accept gifts from foreign governments unless Congress allows them. One thing is a $400 million airliner from Qatar, yet a fan's Rolex is entirely different. At a climate march, that's roughly as subdued as wearing a MAGA cap. The clause is meant to stop foreign governments from slipping in bribes under the cover of goodwill. In reality, TV celebrity shoes, an offer like this is trampling all over, rather than just towing the line. Consider it as a very large Trojan horse. It seems to be a plane driven by Qatar Airways' ego and Trump's own. What if, upon looking inside, it is full of other motivations? Legal experts have observed that accepting such a gift sets an alarming precedent. Imagine if every world leader bestowed onto lawmakers' boats, penthouses, or private aircraft. Diplomacy at that point is not foreign policy, but merely a crooked auction. Is this kind deed then an overt bribe?
You'll notice there's not much of a substantive addressing of the issues there. He just says, he redescribes that it's a gift. Of course, the larger the gift you get, the more in debt you are. Money in politics is strictly.
As you hear there, a lot of the criticism centers on Qatar, which has been a home for Hamas leaders for a number of years, though the country reportedly kicked out those Hamas officials back last November, right after Trump won the election.
Regulated, and politicians, including in the White House, who've gone down the road of taking too many gifts, have usually faced consequences. Long before Watergate, President Nixon.
A lot of the criticism is about Qatar and about what Qatar's trying to get from President Trump. Some of the other commentators are focusing on the optics of this, the appearance of conflict. Ben Shapiro, for example, was saying to his viewers yesterday, what if the Bidens did this? What if it was Hunter or Joe Biden?
Or an olive branch. The $400 million headache is causing ethics watchdogs to bang the closest red button. Still, wait on. There is more to it than only moral conundrums. Suppose this jet isn't what it seems to to be. Suppose this $400 million airplane is really a flying security nightmare rather than a diplomatic emblem. Indeed, the airplane could seem to be something out of a billionaire's fantasy, with its luxurious lounges, gold embellishments, and maybe even a little fountain for show. The catch is that there is, behind all that flash something. Is the plane only a luxury present, or does it have other features like listening in on anything you say? Nobody has checked if this jet could ever meet the stringent criteria of Air Force One. The contemporary Air Force One is the virtual fortress of the United States in the heavens. More than just a plane. Along with advanced protection mechanisms and encrypted communication technologies, it boasts countermeasures meant to guard against practically everything. Imagine that your regular flight could resist the James Bond kind of attack. Now compare that with a luxury jet that a foreign government has assigned you. Although it would be handy for a picture in airborne, it does not imply safe. Take cybersecurity into account. According to experts, hacking concerns already affect modern aircraft.
Of millions of dollars that Donald Trump, you saw his response there, doesn't deny. He says he'll take it, he'll benefit from it, and how dare anyone be mad about it? Of course, the problem is if people are taking this level of gift, which some call graft,
and trying to say this is hypocritical and trying to take a principled stand. You know, since we're talking about an airplane, here's an airplane reference, right? There's different wings of right-wing media. There's different cabins on this plane. There are conservative outlets like National Review.
Quote, skeezy, that's the review, as they're sort of floating the story, from a very MAGA-friendly commentator there, Mr. Shapiro. So that's on the right. That's some of the reaction. Trump himself happens to be heading
very closely aligned with the president. I mentioned Laura Loomer. She has been outspoken on X, on the social media platform, in the last 2 days, almost trying to get Trump's attention, trying to get him to change his mind.
Given that this particular aircraft was built overseas and flown straight from Qatar, things start to feel dangerous. Who's to say, if someone had access to its computers before Trump got them, its systems haven't been altered. Imagine Trump flying about in a jet designed as a spy Wi-Fi hotspot. Though it seems ridiculous, it is not unworkable. Moreover, it is doubtful that changing a plane this kind to satisfy security needs for Air Force One would even work. It's not like putting a turbocharger in a car. Neither can one ignore the upkeep issue. Who would most likely handle the upkeep planes like these demand? Anybody Qatar hires. That's not exactly reassuring given the risks of foreign companies having access to internal operations of a former US president's jet. At the end, nobody knows what is hidden inside, even if the jet presents a beautiful bow. This plane serves what purpose then? Is it meant to help Trump's image, or might it turn into a tool for diplomatic concerns and national security issues? In any case, it's a shining present with far too many strings tied on. About Trump, what about? He most certainly already sees his name on the side in gold visually. More than just a nice jet, the $400 million jet reflects the conflict of political ethics, security, and personal interests. This kind of too generous gift-giving from other nations not only blues, but also oppresses borders. Legal experts remind us that the emoluments clause was meant to prevent this quite dubious influence. Without openness and control here, what happens next? A thank you expressed as a gold-plated tank? One thing is clear, regardless matter whether it's a bribe, a power move, or just Trump being Trump, this is a mess of ethics and optics. Subscription helps you to experience greater political anarchy.